Hello, everybody. Today is Friday, August 2nd. This is Kops Office Hours. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. A reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be put on the internet. Please be mindful, therefore, of our code of conduct and be a good person. I am pasting a link to the agenda in our chat. Please feel free to open that agenda, have a look at it, add any items you would like to cover to that agenda. And please feel free to put your name on there, as I am now doing, having omitted to do so before. If you would like to, it's helpful for people that watch the video so they can track back like who people are if they need to talk to you about anything. Otherwise, actually, yes. Otherwise, let's jump right into it. Rodrigo, you had a very interesting issue about rolling upgrades.
Yeah, so I hit this on all the clusters I have while upgrading them. So if you have auto scaling on, or you do any sort of auto scaling while the cluster is coming up or rotating, if you upgrade from 112 to 113 or 114, if the new kubelets come up that are 113 while they're still maxed,
Oh, I guess that's a rolling.
1 second. Okay. Technical difficulties. So if you have masters that or nodes that come up before masters, all the masters are 113. The nodes will connect. However, any daemon sets or some of the pods that connect have issues with their spec. I pointed out on that issue exactly the diff that causes this. And unfortunately, with kops, because we do the rolling upgrade of the masters, you auto scale or you just have new nodes come. This will always happen.
Yes, we still kind of, you're sort of cutting in and out a little bit, Rodrigo, but I think the issue is very comprehensive, and I think there is a, like, as a way backstory, although Kubernetes has this SKU policy, which basically has a bunch of compatible or SKUs that are allowed, you are not technically allowed to have a kubelet on a later minor release than the master. And so kubelet 113 is not technically allowed to run with kubelet server 112. And so, as you point out, when we do that, we have a new field, which, pod spec enable service links, I guess, is the one. And yes, we do have a Kubernetes. Sorry.
I even hit this with auto scaling off just with the masters. For some reason, the master was still talking to. So in one of the old masters got terminated. A new master came up with 114. That new master also had issues. I never quite got a chance to debug that exactly, but it was still the same issue. Kubelet was just talking to a master that was an older version.
Yes, because I'm wondering whether kubelet, even on the master, whether it's pointing to 127, like to localhost, or whether it points through to the internal name.
It points to localhost.
Oh,
however, for some reason, it was yeah, exactly. That's what I thought too. But it was the exact same issue. I never had a chance to debug that one, but yeah.
Okay, that is very weird. That one feels. I guess the next question is, what happens? Does it recover when you have when the masters have rolled?
It recovers when all the masters have been rotated. The issue you get then is kops rotation itself fails.
Because it validates.
Because, yep. So you have to force a rotation. Yep.
So I think, and I think the issue here is we in kops have a Kubernetes version, which is at the cluster level rather than at the instance group level.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. I think we might, despite the fact that it is at the cluster level, I think it gets mirrored into the instance group, I think. And so if you were to roll your masters, so you can do a kops rolling update by instance group. You can specify the instance groups. And I think you can even specify roll master to just roll the masters. So I think it'd be interesting to know whether if we split, I don't know, if we split, because we can't update. All right, I'm sorry. Yes, I understand what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to fix.
Yeah.
We'll probably have to, so technically we must, according to the rules, we have to update the masters first, entirely first, and that's the autoscaler. Yeah, okay. I don't have a great answer. I don't know if anyone else has a great answer right now.
So basically, you would need to not touch the node's launch configurations in order to not adjust their user data to pull down the new version of kops or of Kubernetes. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. Yep.
So, but what if you delete the autoscaler before doing the rolling update? And then you re-enable it at the end. I know that it's not a very good, polished solution, but maybe a good workaround to do it.
Yeah, that's somewhat what we've been doing. It's just that we auto-scale very aggressively, and that can get pretty expensive because we have to pre-provision before we do the rotation. But it's a one-time thing, so that's how we've been getting around it. But I'm not sure if it's a long-term solution because we most likely will hit this again.
Yeah, I guess you can try to minimize it by just doing a disable cluster autoscaler, roll only the masters, re-enable the autoscaler, and then slowly re-roll the work.
Yeah, and again, that worked for us for most of the things, except when we hit the issue on the master too, which, like Justin said, it was really weird, and I never got a chance to debug it.
Yeah, it'd be great to know what that is because that's really surprising. I don't know whether it's like this, whether it was the same one or not. I guess it. Oh, actually, I think I know what this probably is. So there's another bug, a long-standing Kubernetes bug, where if you have mixed API server versions, the older one obviously doesn't have this enable service link field. So if you write an enable service link pod to it, this doesn't sound right. I don't know, but it doesn't sound right in this case. But you can, if you write to an older version, the field will be sort of erased. So it is tricky.
Yeah, no, like again, I got very little chance to look at it. The errors were exactly the same. It felt like he was talking, communication was going through another API server. It doesn't really make any sense because kubelet is configured to talk to localhost, but yeah.
Yes, I'm also wondering, I mean, we have tried to work around these issues in Kubernetes by essentially being more disciplined about how we introduce fields. And there are supposed to be rules that, you're not supposed to introduce a field and start using it in the same release. It sounds like we have not necessarily, it's always hard to follow the rules exactly. And it sounds like we didn't necessarily follow the rules here or the guidance here. One of the things I do think, if we get to machine deployments, like the cluster API, the cluster API does have a separate notion on the machine deployment of a Kubernetes version. So we can accelerate getting there, and we can say, well, we know we're going to have this notion of a per kops instance group version, so maybe we should actually mirror it down and actually configure it to enable split updates. Yeah, that would be fine. I'm just trying to think about exactly how the workflow would. I guess and then the default workflow would presumably just update them all at the same time, but maybe we have a more complicated workflow on a minor upgrade. It becomes, we sort of then need a tool to to guide you through the steps of that, which is okay. We can do that. We have, I mean, it would basically be a wizard that would do the building blocks of. So we'd start off with having, by default, so proposed plan of action. We can put the Kubernetes version on each instance group to enable it. We can start off by having the existing, there's a toolbox set command, which would basically just set the version everywhere. So that we'd still have the problem. we could then, but you could then set it on a per instance group basis. So you could compose a series of actions like update masters, update, rolling update, update nodes, update, rolling update. And then having got that, we can then have a sort of porcelain command that executes that sequence of actions.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound terrible.
No, it sounds, again, for us, that would completely work. It sounds overly complicated for some of our users, but they'll just have to deal with that, I guess.
Yes, and we only have to deal with it on a minor upgrade. In theory, only have to deal with it on a minor upgrade. You are allowed to skew patch. Like you're allowed to run 1.12.6 kubelets with 1.12.1 API servers. That's perfectly legal.
Yep.
And we have this kops upgrade command, which is sort of guides you through other changes. So, for example, like we've used it in the past to nudge people off pinning like various options. And I'm thinking for a lot of people still have etcd versions pinned and things like that, which we could nudge people to unpin those etcd versions. So it's, yeah, we can put it into kops upgrade, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the first step, though, I think is if we start with having the ability to specify a Kubernetes version on an instance group, probably optionally, then and have that override, then I think you gain the capabilities to do it. And I presume you're not. I presume you're doing it from a script anyway, rather than doing it. And so it's a little bit of a pain, but it shouldn't be too much of a pain for you.
Yep. Yeah, and we've got around this on our clusters already, so it's fine for us. Just
okay. Yeah, you're past this upgrade.
Yep.
But thank you for bringing it up. Yes, because I'm sure it will happen again.
Yep.
So okay, thank you.
Yep.
I don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to talk about that, but I think we should expose the ability to have an instance group on a different Kubernetes version, I guess, is the immediate first step, and then we can build from there to better porcelain. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Peter, how to get client certs for connecting to kubelet? Do you want to?
Yeah, so we're working on disabling anonymous auth on kubelets. Unfortunately, which is good. Unfortunately, our monitoring tools rely on communicating with each node's kubelet. And so if we disable anonymous auth, that requires giving client certificates to the monitoring tools. When you disable anonymous auth in kops, kops creates a client certificate on the masters for the API servers to communicate with them, but we would need a client certificate on every node. So I'm wondering what the best way to accomplish that would be.
Are you asking for it as a host path, a file on the node, or a secret?
Either one.
Okay. I mean, we could certainly create a secret in-kube system that could enable you, that we could then grant very limited permissions to access the kubelet. I feel like that's just re-enabling anonymous auth, sort of. But I don't know. What we should do is, so I think that's an approach. I think one thing we could do is look at how other people have done it. I thought also you were supposed to be able to use a Kubernetes service account, which is not a client cert pair, but I thought if you have a Kubernetes service account, the intent of a lot of these was that, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's API server exposes an endpoint that lets services basically check, or lets any component check whether a service account is authorized to do things. Subject access review is the name of it. So the intent was that all these pieces would start using subject access review to accept service accounts as their means of identity rather than the client cert. That's definitely worth a go. I think we should check how other people have done it, but then that would be relatively secure. You would give, let's say, New Relic, I'm guessing, or something like that, or Datadog, a special service account. You would grant the permissions to that service account, and you would tell the agent to use that service account when querying kubelet.
Okay, I will do some research on that. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, ping me too. I know we have something configured. I don't remember exactly how, and I'm not at a computer right now, so.
Okay, thanks.
I would like to sort of just say that we do have an ugly hack of downloading the CA and signing our own client certificate that we have done in the past, but that's definitely not advised.
There is also, that's a good point. There is also a there's a API for that. There's a CSR certificate subject review maybe API in Kubernetes, where I think you can basically create a CSR request, certificate signing request. There we are, and you can it will automatically sign some certificates for you. So you may also be able to do that, which is honestly the same thing, just wrapped in the Kubernetes API.
Sorry, does that use the kops CA, or is that using a different CA?
So this is this is built into Kubernetes, and it uses the Kubernetes CA, which is so kops is creating the Kubernetes CA cert. Technically, I think it could use a different CA or a sub CA, but I think everyone uses the same CA.
Okay, thanks.
And that's actually used in the kubelet bootstrap flow. So I can't recall whether we actually have that enabled by default. We should get that enabled by default, but I think we have it enabled optionally right now, I believe. Marunia?
Yeah, it's me.
Matteo, thank you.
Hello.
Oh yeah, there we are. Yes, got it. Sorry.
No worries. So my question is that we recently started looking into the libcni, and I've seen that the version that we installed with kops is hard-coded at the link that I pasted into the document. So I have a couple of questions around what would be the good way to contribute back, and maybe specify the lift CNI version, and how to improve the documentation, because in the networking document there is no mention of the lift CNI, even if it's supported.
So I don't know how many people are using the lift CNI, so that's probably why the documentation is a little lacking. And if you are interested in contributing, that would be wonderful. I'm not really familiar with, like, the alternative to the lift CNI is the AWS VPC ENI one, and I'm not really familiar with, honestly, why you would pick one or the other, or how they are doing relative to each other. We do want to get to a world in kops where things like the version of these CNI plugins is not baked into the binary, but right now they are. So if you wanted to send a PR to update the version, that would be very welcome. And often updating the version entails updating the manifest as well. So that's also great. We tend to do those only on minor releases of Kubernetes, to so we don't break anyone's existing manifests. But if it's important enough, we can. And other than that, I think, yeah, it'd be wonderful for you to try. If you have any issues, let us know. But yeah, it's basically, it's a sort of community effort. So I don't think there's any reason that we haven't done it. It's just no one has done it.
No problem. It's just that before submitting the PR to change from one hard-coded value to the other one, I wanted to check that was the right approach. But yeah, no problem. Thank you.
It is the right approach, and we would, yes, thank you. We would like to get it extracted to the bundle, and there are also PRs where people are sending PRs, which I think is a good one, to let people override the image, which is often a good one. Like, often people just want to use a newer version, and that's nice because, then if there's a security issue or whatever it is, you don't have to deal with a kops. You don't have to wait for a kops update. You can just update the image directly. But yes, please do send a PR, would be wonderfully appreciated.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
One downside of exposing the image for add-ons is that oftentimes they require other changes to the manifest as well, like additional RBAC permissions or an environment variable or something. And so exposing it can sometimes lead to confusion why certain things don't work when you upgrade.
Yes, and I think it'd be great to get it if you could specify a manifest externally, but still you're right. Like we're not going to have solved RBAC or we're not going to solve IAM permissions or network firewall permissions or things like that. They tend to change less often, which is the upside, but yeah, it's certainly an issue. All right, if there's nothing else on that, Guy, Core DNS related.
Yes. So yeah, there's currently I know Core DNS is not the default yet, and it's currently sort of calling back the previous one. It's a hard-coded image version in the manifest. There's a couple of pull requests that I've linked to there that are sort of either changing or modifying, adding a bit more flexibility to that manifest. There's an issue I've raised, which yeah, I'd like to be able to basically fully specify our core file, if possible, in the sort of kops config to allow us to fully set up what we want in terms of different plugins, etc. I realize that probably for most people that's going to be overkill, and I think my personal opinion on the moving core DNS to a daemon set on the masters is it's not a good idea, and that actually we should go down the same route as the kubedns setup at the moment, which has a cluster proportional autoscaler on it, scale up and down with the size of the cluster. I've not raised an issue for that one yet, but I'm happy to raise one, propose a setup for that.
Yeah, I think it certainly is the easier on that topic. It's certainly the easier transition to like just move from kubedns to core DNS rather than also moving to the master. The other piece that's coming hopefully is node local DNS, which is like a lot of people have already a per node proxy, and this is sort of an upstream solution that people can use, which then everyone would have a good base to start from, I guess, or hopefully it would meet most people's needs. For your particular, one more factor is I and others are working on this idea of add-on operators, which would, in theory, allow like a cross-installation tool specification of things like core DNS, and also do things like if core DNS had more complicated upgrades, or like node local DNS has a more complicated installation, uninstallation sequence, like help with things like that. That said, I don't think there's any reason why I don't think we should hold up all changes to configuration for that. The external one, as you say, it wouldn't be compatible. Like basically like all bets are off at that point, and that's okay. I guess the question is like, your changes are, I assume, sufficiently complicated that they are unique to you and not something we should like try to expose.
That's my feeling. Yeah, we've got like I put a snippet in the issue for how we set up, but we've got like full-on breakdowns of different localized within our VPC DNS servers that we route certain domains to lower the impact on other bits. So yeah, the other alternative would be exposing about 30 different options, which the vast majority of people would never need.
Yes, and I'm hoping that that core DNS eventually moves to a sort of Kubernetes style CRD model, so that those 30 options would be nicely composed into like each one of those providers would be their own CRD type thing, and it wouldn't be quite so crazy. But yeah, I like, given the complexity, I like the idea of external, like saying like I need a break glass model and I know what I'm doing. I think we've struggled with this in kops a lot on the networking side, and like it probably like I feel like external is a good compromise for where we do the majority, but there's always the long tail, and we can't do everything. And I feel like if you're genuine in the long tail, which it sounds like you are, then I think external is a better option than trying to like do it option by option and like cycling through kops releases and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't know if you want to send a PR or.
Yeah, can do.
That'd be cool. Thank you. And I guess the only other question I have is, yeah, I guess it should live in the cluster, I guess, itself. We have talked in the past about splitting up the cluster object to be less monolithic, but I don't think we should tie this PR to that. I think at some stage, it'd be nice to be able to specify in a YAML alongside it somewhere, but we don't have the mechanics for that today.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I clarify just what that specifically means, the external functionality that you're suggesting? Is that something that already lives in kops today, or something that we're planning on adding in this PR?
My understanding is it would be added. Sorry, for coordinates it would be added, and we have basically a baked-in. I don't remember if it's completely static or mostly static coordinates core file that's configured.
Okay, so this is just for the core file, basically.
This is just for the core file. The external pattern that we've started looking at is in some places, rather than requiring like subnets to be created, we have subnets where you can basically specify an external ID, for example. Yeah. I think the other one where this has come up is in, I don't remember anymore, routing of some description. Can anyone help me out here? But yes, we've gone with like, I think there's a PR out there to say you can just specify external and you're on your own at that point.
Yeah, I think there's a CNI suggestion.
There was a CNI, yes, and CNI as well. Yes. Okay. Yes, it's like a general pattern that like we have this field so that we sort of have a nice compromise between it's still exposed in the kops cluster that you're doing something weird in the kops cluster spec, so that if you have a problem, it's very obvious to see from the YAML that you're stepping outside the bounds a little bit, and like probably it's in that place. Hopefully it's in that place. But for the basic or for the 90 whatever % use case, most people shouldn't necessarily need to use external, is sort of the hope. But for the power users that need to like configure a VPN as their means of egress or ingress or whatever it is, they can just specify external. Thanks. Or external for the core file or external for your CNI or whatever it is. All right, thank you. Okay, and then this is one that the next one is something I put on the issue, an issue I put on the agenda, which is around. I don't know if Ripta is here. I'll see him, but apparently, the newer AWS instance types, including C5s, for example, C5s and M5s, support 28 attachments. But those attachments include network interfaces, EBS volumes, and NVMe instance storage volumes. So I did not know this. Today I learned, if you attach a bunch of ENI providers, for example, using the Lyft or AWS VPC ENI, you then can't attach as many volumes anymore. So the request is the scheduler today imposes a limit on the number of volumes you can attach. So like it won't put more than, I guess, 28 or whatever it is onto a single node because it knows that you can't do that. But now that limit is no longer true. It's no longer a constant limit either, which is really difficult. But the proposal is we have a field to override the number of the limit. With an environment, we have an environment variable in scheduler that overrides the limit, and which was actually put in there because people wanted to attach more volumes back when that was possible, I guess, or possible on some instance types. It's a constant, so this is sort of a hack because we actually need to fix the scheduler to be aware of, I guess, the number of ENI attachments in some way. but that won't make it into a Kubernetes release for a good long time, not least because ENIs aren't even visible today to the scheduler. So I feel like it's a little annoying that it isn't the real challenge is this isn't a field in the scheduler. So we need to make scheduler aware of the fact that it's sort of important to keep this environment variable supported. And ideally come up with a better way to account for this odd constraint that the sum of volumes plus ENIs must be less than or equal to 20, plus something else, NVMEs must be less than or equal to 28, which presumably is also a variable. But anyway, I wanted to raise it here to see if anyone else had a better idea or what we thought of it, but I'm guessing that how Ripta is planning on using this is basically setting a limit of 10 or something, or something basically much smaller, on the grounds that most people probably don't run their nodes with that many volumes attached, I would guess. And so they're saying, well, never going to have more than 10 ENIs and 10 volumes, and that leaves another 8 for NVMEs, and that's good enough, or something like that. That sort of calculation will probably get to the point where it's good enough for as long as it takes to get this functionality properly baked into Kubernetes, is my guess. Or we can ask them to raise the limits. But yes, it's an interesting wrinkle.
That is horrible. That's all I have to say.
I was like, where'd this come from? I was like, it almost feels like PCI lanes, right? I guess, but it's all virtual. So I'm like, I don't think that's the case. But anyway.
Yeah. Is there any upstream issue tracking this on the scheduler or something?
I asked for Ripta to open one.
Okay, so not yet.
I don't believe he's yet done so, but yes. My understanding is not yet. There might be one. I haven't gone splunking yet.
Okay.
But yes, we definitely should get an upstream issue on this going. I can't think of a better. This is the group that would come up with a better approach. I can't think of a better approach than the one that we have today. Like exposing that environment variable. And the proposal was to expose it as a field on the scheduler config.
Yeah, I would agree. The proposal that's out there is the best way forward today.
So the schedule already supports having a limit of the number of volumes.
It has a hard-coded limit which can be override with an environment variable.
Okay. Yeah.
And yes, but it's not ideal because it's an environment variable rather than an actual contract.
Yeah, it sounds like a proper fix would have to be within the scheduler itself.
Yes. That's certainly the obvious place to put it. Is
the communication with AWS in the scheduler, or is that in a separate spot? Sorry, I don't.
That's exactly the challenge. Scheduler does not have any cloud provider awareness at all. So it was particularly difficult, for example, for the AWS VPC CNI because it imposed a lower pod limit, and that wasn't visible. So it has to basically be set on the node, which is basically through the kubelets, which is aware on that. So we're able to get that going, but this is a new one because on AWS, on certain instance types, there is this odd requirement, and ENIs are not visible today to the scheduler, but there is a pluggable resource extensibility mechanism, which is how, for example, we count GPUs. So I guess this will entail either exposing ENIs or some notion of attachments to the on the node. But yes, this is not going to be a fun one to solve.
Yeah, well, it's good to know before we move to M5s or C5s, though. So.
Yes, that is the other answer, right? Is find ones that are good instances not on this list. It looks like all the. Just scanning the list, it does look like all the newest generation, just off the top of my head. I don't know if it's hard to see which ones are missing.
Yeah, I think it's to do with some of their re-architecture stuff that's made things faster has resulted in those limits.
And at least the limit is the same for all the instance types, and it's not a per instance type limit.
I feel like there's a big today proviso on that. Okay, I think we've spoken enough about this. I think we're agreed that like we should raise an issue, get the upstream scheduler people thinking about this wonderful issue. I might ruin their Friday by putting it in Slack, just to have some amusement. But yes, and in the meantime, we should expose the environment variable. I'll try to get that into, which brings me on to the next topic. I'll try to get that into 1.14.0 beta 1 or whatever we're about to cut, because the next topic is the release train is rolling. So if we recall, last week or last 2 weeks ago, we did a review of the things that needed to happen in the various releases, and we have a big, not backlog, we have a list of releases which I intended to get to happen in this 2-week cycle. We made good progress, but I did not complete the whole list, but thanks to everyone that helped. Basically, we did the etcd manager, CTL bumps, we have better enforcement of etcd versions, which was sort of the big outstanding issue. I was looking at them around, that was causing people a lot of trouble. We got kops 1.13.0 out about an hour ago, which is good. I did also bumped kops 1.12 to pick up that new etcd manager and etcd version change, because it will now warn you if you're going to use a version of etcd that isn't supported, which will also help people get on the sort of golden versions or the like versions we support. I think we also added one etcd 3.3.13 or whatever the latest etcd is in there, so that's now available as well. And I think we're basically ready to cut kops 1.14.0 beta 1. I think all the things have gone in. I just haven't had time to do so yet. And then I'll also do 1.15.0 alpha 1, 1.16.0 alpha 1. And we did some AMI promotion. I still need to do the AMI refresh. I think the channel bumps are basically mostly done, although I will double check those. I don't know if there are any other new releases we think we need to do, or should we keep the sort of release backlog as continuing. I'm hoping this time we can do 1.16.0 alpha 1, which will require some node label stuff. So that's still pretty ambitious for 2 weeks, but I'm optimistic. Anyone else want to throw anything else on the plate, or any blockers or like problems that we should get resolved before doing so? I'm going to put in 1.14.0 beta 1. I'm going to put in the EBS volume limit, or the max PDs fix.
Just one question. I know we've been tracking the cherry picks back to 1.11. Now that 1.13 is out, are we going to continue to track back to 1.11, or are we going into 1.12 only?
In the absence of any compelling reason, I would say 1.11 only. Oh, sorry. In the absence of any compelling reason, I would say no more to 1.11. Yes, I did 1.12 because I figure there were some like more important things. There was a security fix. People might not want to go right onto the new 1.13.0, and also because 1.12 is where we do the etcd update, and so like having more checks around that felt like a good thing to do. But yes, I would encourage people to use 1.12 or 1.13 and not 1.11 at this point. Like the Calico security fixes, I don't think we backported to 1.11. And we do have this sort of strategy that like kops should work with all prior versions of Kubernetes. So it doesn't make a huge amount of sense to have, and it should work with all prior versions of Kubernetes and should not change unnecessarily the configuration of a prior version. So when we introduce a new version, a new significant version of the LIF VPC CNI, for example, that's why we would put it into, for example, Kubernetes 1.14, so we didn't change the configuration on an existing 1.13 cluster. The exception to that would be if it's a security fix where we do want to change it. So there's no reason to have like 20 open kops versions.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks. Good point. We'll put that in the cherry picker and like exit off, I guess.
Yep. I'll flag it right now. I've got it open.
Sweet. Thank you. Yeah, we have been. I have been updating things in there, and thank you to everyone else that has also been updating things in there. It's good. Oop. I just saw. Okay. Just another PR go in, which I will consider for 114. But anyway, any other topics that people would like to discuss? If not, everyone gets 17 minutes back. And I wish everyone a very happy weekend and happy 2 weeks. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.